Hello, this is Pastor Ken, Upper Valley Bible Church, St. Anthony, Idaho. We're here to introduce some biblical prophecy ideas. Years ago, there was a group, Chicago, that did a song, "Does Anyone Know What Time It Is?" And it dealt with the idea of where are we at in the time frame of the human race. And Jesus, he said a similar thing in the book of Matthew 16, when he was talking to the Pharisees and Sadducees. He says, "When it is evening, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. In the morning, there will be a storm today, for the sky is red and threatening. Do you know how to discern the appearance of the sky, but cannot discern the signs of the times?" And so I took that verse, and after listening to that particular song, and what would be the signs of Jesus coming back the second time? And as I started studying Scripture, I found a number of things that were really important. In fact, I actually took a piece of paper and began to jot down different things that I found, political, cultural, and so that's some of the things that I would like to discuss in this series. In the political realm, for 2,000 years, people have been saying that Jesus is going to come back. Well, they've always overlooked the primary sign that had to be in the world before anything else counted. They've always talked about wars and rumors of wars and famine and pestilence and all that. Those are general signs, and they've happened over the last 2,000 years. But there are some specific signs that we can start with, and the first one Israel. The people of God, the Jewish nation, had to have the land of Palestine back. There's a number of different passages that deal with this. Ezekiel 37, Isaiah chapter 11. And so we'll look at those later because it takes a lot more time to flesh those out. But right now we need to understand that Israel is the key to all biblical prophecy. Ezekiel chapter 4 gives a specific time frame for Israel coming back and God beginning to work with them as a national entity. And so we'll come back and we'll look at that later. The second sign that's involved is Russia. All right, now Russia, in Ezekiel 38 and 39, it's actually called Gog, Magog, chief prince of Rosh, Meshach, Tubal. This group of people come from Noah, they are actually grandsons of Noah through Japheth, who went north of the Caspian Sea and settled in what is now modern-day Russia. The key phrase is repeated 3 times, that these people will attack Israel when Israel is a baby nation, and they will attack from the uttermost north. That phrase is used 3 times in Ezekiel 38 and 39. And based on that, we know that it's Russia. You go north of Jerusalem and you go right through Moscow almost. And if you keep going, then you're going back south because you've gone past the North Pole. So the uttermost north has to be Russia. And they are aligned with specific countries when they attack Israel. Libya, Ethiopia, and Persia. Persia is the modern nation of Iran. And as we look at what's going on with Iran and Russia and the coalition that they have going there, things are coming together quickly. Beth Togarmah is mentioned, and that is modern-day Turkey. 3 weeks ago, from where I'm at right now, the 1st of September 2022, Putin, the Ayatollah in Iran, and the president of Turkey, Erdogan, met, and they signed a military working pact with one another that if any one of them gets attacked, the others will come and help. And so the framework is all there for Russia to attack Israel. Ezekiel 38 says that God puts a hook into Russia's nose or jaw and pulls them into the Middle East. It's not something that they're planning to do, it's something that they do. Anyway, so we'll come back and we'll look at that later. The next Kings of the East. In Revelation chapter 9 and chapter 16, it says that the kings of the East, a confederacy of countries that can field an army of 200 million men, will take and attack Israel when it is a baby nation, and it'll be towards the end of the tribulation period. And so the idea is they attack across the Euphrates River, and in attacking across from Euphrates River, the Euphrates River will be dried up, and they will have a road to the Middle East. Now, it's really significant that when the United States pulled out of Afghanistan in 2001, China immediately stepped in and signed a pact with the Taliban to build an economic corridor from China through Afghanistan into the Middle East, which deals with a major highway that will go from north to south and into the Middle East and across into Israel. The next political entity is in Daniel chapter 11, verse 35, and it's the king of the south. Egypt has always been the king of the south, and they take and form a confederacy of nations, Arab nations, that will attack Israel when it is a baby nation. It's interesting what's going on in that Egypt is now consolidating its power structure in the Arab world and pulling things together for this confederacy. Now, in Daniel chapter 7, chapter 2 and chapter 7, it talks about a 10 nations that will take and rule the known world. Now, there's a number of conjectures about this. We know that Europe, where the Roman Empire used to be, is going to be part of this. Some of the conventional thinking is that this 10-nation confederacy comes up out of Europe, and the world dictator, the Antichrist, comes up out of this coalition. The unique thing about the Antichrist power is it's economic first, then political, and then military. One of the things that has taken place in the last 30, 40 years is that they've divided the world up. The world whoever's have taken and divided the world up into 10 sections, economic sections that take and control how the economics plays out in that particular section and how they're related to one another. NAFTA is part of this. That's the North American Free Trade Agreement. President Trump, he reworked that to get a little bit of a deal for the United States. But Canada and Mexico and the United States are all involved in this. And so there's supposed to be this free trade flowing back and forth. Well, there are 10 of these sections of the world. And that very well could fit this particular prophecy with regard to the Antichrist having economic power over the entire known world. And so the political sphere is set up. Never in the history of man have we had this combination of countries at the same time Israel was a country. In fact, Israel has not been a national entity with its own government since the fall of Jerusalem, Israel, to Babylon in 587. And so they've had puppet governments, they've been under the Persian rule, they've been under Greek rule, and yet now they have their own government. That is significant with regard to what God is doing in the world, because now everything else comes into play. As we come back to the next session, what we'll do is I'll deal with Israel and the importance of the Jewish people, Hebrew people, being back in the land of Palestine, and we'll go from there.